than 10 chapters in the Quran, in more than 90 verses of the Quran, that some of the names of chapters in the Quran take their names after the family of Jesus. One of the long surahs in the Quran, Ali Imran, the third one in the order, it relates to the family of Mary, and it mentioned also something about her and the birth of Jesus, peace be upon him. And also there is a whole chapter, chapter 19 in the Quran. The name of that chapter is Mary, Maryam, after the name of the Blessed Mary, and actually speaks also about the conception of Jesus and his mission. So when I say the love of the Prophet, or when the Prophet says you cannot be a believer until you love Allah and his messenger more than anything else, it is not exclusion of any other prophet, because the Quran shows that we should love all of these prophets. But for the Muslim, of course, to love Prophet Muhammad is symbolical of loving all of the prophets who became him before him, because the Quran believes, in Islamic tradition, he is the last and final prophet of God. So loving him is loving all of the prophets. There is, of course, the natural love that we all have, that's loving our family, children, spouses, relatives, because the Quran speaks about far relatives as well, and I think that's a common value, I believe, also both biblical and Quranic. But then the real test is, can one really be merciful and loving to people who are outside of their immediate family? Because it is natural love, it's instinctive love. The Prophet of Islam answered that question. One time sitting among his companions, and he's telling them, those who show mercy, Allah will show mercy to them. So they wondered, they say, "O Messenger of God, all of us are merciful." He said, "I don't mean your mercy that one of you show to his friend," meaning friend or family, people are close, that's natural. But he said, beautiful term in Arabic, rahmatul lil amma. But it is how you can show mercy beyond that to all, amma, all. And we find in the Quran emphasis on obligation towards your neighbor, to the point that the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, actually made one of the criteria of true faith and believing God is not to hurt or harm your neighbor. He says, anyone who believes in God and the hereafter, let him not hurt his neighbor. And it's not only in the negative. The Quran itself, in one verse it says, worship God, associate none with him, and show mercy and love and respect to your parents, relatives, far relatives, your neighbor. And he says also your neighbor that you don't know, because you might know my neighbor is Richard next door, or Ali the other. The neighbor that you don't know, which many interpreters of the Quran said, even a casual neighbor sitting by your side in a plane or bus, he is also entitled, he or she are entitled for the kind treatment. But then it goes beyond that to the whole community, nation, and humanity at large. And I'd like to emphasize here that some perverted ideas that some of you might have heard of, some extremists, uneducated, improperly, either uneducated or improperly educated Muslim, who think that anywhere in the Quran there is some text that says that you don't have friends with non-Muslims who did not accept Islam, or that you should hate them because they're non-believers in Islam, is totally and utterly erroneous. I'm not want to make it too long, but I leave that to your question. To come and challenge me with evidence from the Quran and Sunnah, but let me only quote one verse in the Quran that settles that issue. But you can ask more, for more evidence. In chapter 60 in the Quran, verse 8, we find the fundamental rule in the Quran in relating to those who do not share the faith of Islam. And I give you the free translation of the meaning. It says, God or Allah does not forbid you or restrain you, O Muslims, with respect to those, and the word those here meaning anyone who is not a Muslim. We talk about the relationship between Muslims and others, whether it's Jews, Christians, or others, any human being who is not a Muslim. God does not forbid you with respect to those who did not fight you because of your religion or drive you out of your homes, meaning aggression or severe oppression, being driven from one's home. That's not capricious. Isn't every human being entitled to that? Not to be fought because he chose a particular religion? or to be driven from their homes unfairly. In return for that, it says what? That you should treat them. Most translators will say kindness and justice. I have reservation on that translation, even though it's positive. You know why? There is another Arabic word for kindness, rahmah, for those who know Arabic. But the verse in the Quran says, uses a term come from bir, you know, the third line from below, B-I-R-R. And bir in Arabic, as used in the Quran and Hadith, the two main primary sources of Islam, actually speaks about your obligation towards your, anyone who knows? Exactly, your parents, exactly. Birrul walidain. And the argument that some scholars advance, that this is more than love, more than kindness. Because your relationship with parents, yes, it should be a relationship of compassion towards them, but it has also respect. Respecting parents, anybody argues about that? Thirdly, love, even if they have a different religion, they're your parents. And as such, when people translate it as mercy, they capture only 1/3 of the meaning of it. To me, to treat them with kindness, respect, and love, because these are the elements of one's obligation toward parents. The second term, justice. People say justice. But the original Arabic word, qist, according to some classical scholars like Ibn al-Arabi, is much deeper even and more than justice. He explained it this way. For example, if I owe you $1,000, I give it to you, so no less, but no more. Have I been fair to you? I give you your right, no less, but no more. But Ibn al-Arabi actually say the word qist in Arabic, specially chosen in that verse, means also to go beyond giving people their full rights. Like you're my neighbor, I fulfill all my obligation towards you, I'm fair and just with you, but beyond that, I give you a gift in some occasion to soften your heart, to establish good neighborly relationship. So I call it actually kindness plus, justice plus, to know that the English translation failed to truly capture the various dimensions and depth of these terms. And God could have used another term. Isn't that really an amazing foundation of showing that love also to those who do not share your faith, so long as they are peacefully coexisting with you? But there is something also rather interesting when you look at the Quran, even though that verse applies to all people who are not Muslims. But the Quran singles out, in particular, Jews and Christians for a special relationship. Again, something that some people are interested in making sure that people don't see it. Build thicker walls, so that they can see it. They are referred to, Jews and Christians in particular, as part of the Abrahamic family. And we all know that, from Abraham, he got the first son, Ishmael. That was the first son. A descendant of that son is Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. And he had the second son, Isaac, from whom came all the Israelite prophets. Isaac, Jacob, Joseph, down to Moses. And the last Israelite in the Israelite branch is the blessed Jesus, peace be upon him. And maybe some Muslim writers, in fact, reflect on the promise made in Genesis in chapter 12, that God promised Abraham to bless all the nations of earth through his descendants. And it was indeed fulfilled for a long time in the descendants of Isaac, and finally came the one from the descendant of the first son, Ishmael. Both of them actually were promised blessing as well. But in any case, with these three Abrahamic religions that maintained the monotheistic faith, and I think this is a message to some of my Muslims, I always remind them, don't confuse